But since I'm limited by time, I'm just going to ask Ms. Cabrera, have you ever had your picture taken with a firearm in your hands and perhaps a smile on your face?
Yes, I have.
Do you think that a person holding a firearm and pointing it in a direction with a smile on their face should be someone who should be looked at as feared or demeaned in any way?
No.
Thank you. Would I be out of line to suggest to you or to Mr. Bernardo that a great number of firearms owners, because the registry comes under the Criminal Code of Canada, and because there is such a when we're dealing with licenses, we're dealing with a Department of Highways, we're dealing with other things. When you don't register your vehicle and you're stopped by the police, it's a provincial offense and there's a fine attached. But when you don't register your firearm, you are automatically a criminal. And would I be out of line to suggest that's why the majority of firearms owners feel that they're being criminalized by the very fact that they own a firearm?
Yeah, I think that states it pretty well. There's also, of course, the stigmatism that society has now been presenting to firearms owners based upon the unbelievable amounts of media we've been seeing since the Firearms Act came into effect, demonizing them. This is something you don't talk about with your neighbors anymore.
Thank you. Mr. Bernardo, how many members do you have?
We have 15,000 individual paid members, coast to coast, and approximately 100 plus clubs.
Mr. Bernardo, we've been told that the registry helps track stolen guns and forces firearms owners to be more responsible in storing their firearms. And I'd like to imagine that your members are overwhelmingly responsible citizens to begin with. What do you make of this claim?
Well, we are definitely overwhelmingly responsible citizens. That's how we got firearms licenses in the first place. Half the people out there who don't have them probably couldn't get them. However, to say that the registration encourages or forces owners to be more responsible is airy-fairy wishful thinking. You can't take a piece of paper, put it beside a firearm inside the closed doors of one's own domicile and expect that to have any kind of an effect. In terms of tracing lost or stolen firearms, it is a federal offense right now to not report a lost or stolen firearm. You must do that whether the gun is registered or not. And very few of those guns traced actually make it back to their owners, in spite of the fact we've had judges issue court orders repeatedly to police services to return the firearms, and they aren't returned.
Mr. Bernardo, we've also heard conflicting reports that the information on the registry database is secure, and then other witnesses say it's not secure. We've been told it's safe from access by the criminal element. What do you make of that claim?
Again, wishful thinking. I have a document here in my hand. It's a portion of an interview done with the webmaster for the Canada Firearms Centre. His name is John Hicks. He says a 13-year-old with an internet connection in a half an hour can get into the National Firearms Database. That's simple. Now that it's been moved under CPIC, well, that's great. But I also have 2 RCMP access to information requests showing 306 breaches of CPIC, and that was between the years 95 and 2003. So if you can get into CPIC, you get into the gun registry. 306 breaches according to the RCMP. Secure? No, absolutely not. And worse, the information that you can get out of that computer could get somebody killed. There are people out there, bad people, who will kill you for your guns.
Thank you. Also, we've been repeatedly told here again today that the money that's already been spent to set up the registry shouldn't be considered, and that it's foolish to dismantle it now. Can you comment on that?
Half the guns aren't in the registry. We're only halfway there. And the second half are going to be harder to get than the first half. If you want the second half, and I think if you're going to make this thing work, it has to happen, be prepared to spend more than the $2 billion you spent the first time, because people won't come forward anymore. In my office, we get calls 2 or 3 times a week from people saying, I was going through Granddad's stuff, I found this old World War I handgun, What do I do with it? We say, well, you take it to the police department. They say, will they register it? No, they'll destroy it. They're not allowed to register it. Oh, okay. Thanks. Click.
And following up on that, what's your experience that firearms, in your experience, how are firearms owners treated in the courts or by the courts?
Well, thank you for asking that question. A firearms owner is somebody who's never been in trouble with the law before, because if they were, they wouldn't have a firearms license. Thank you. They get into court. They are put through the entire court system like they're John Dillinger. They have a Crown attorney pounding on the opposite table saying, we want 2 years or 3 years or 4 years jail time. This is someone who's never even been in a courtroom before. They are terrified. They spend $8,000 or $9,000 out of their pocket to get acquitted on something like an unsafe storage charge. They're also given a firearms prohibition immediately, and we've even had firearms prohibitions given out to our members for things that were totally unrelated to guns. We had a guy get a dangerous driving conviction, and they gave him a firearms prohibition for 10 years, which is the equivalent of a lifetime prohibition. This stuff is happening in courtrooms right throughout Canada. We started out at the beginning of the Firearms Act. There was no such thing in Canada as a firearms lawyer. There are now 6 of them working full-time.
Thank you.